Hi, this presentation is about risk portfolio management and building a risk-aware culture. My name is Anssi Nevalainen and I am a senior portfolio advisor at Thinking Portfolio. At Thinking Portfolio, I am responsible for developing our risk portfolio tool on our platform. I have worked with several customers when implementing and developing risk portfolios. Before this, I have developed risk portfolio management in infrastructure building and management. To me, risk management can be bond between organization targets and operations in almost any kind of organization. It is valuable common nominator between, for example, finance results and stakeholder value, because risks and reward go hand in hand. Risk management is an important process that helps organizations to identify potential threats and minimize their impact. Building a risk-aware culture is equally important to ensure that stakeholders understand the importance of risk management and take proactive measures to mitigate risks. To me, being risk-aware is being risk-aware and not taking unnecessary risks. I will go through basic steps that can help you to do risk management and build a risk-aware culture in your organization. These steps are mostly included in every risk management standard and framework. First, identify the risks. The first step is to identify potential risks that can impact your organization. This can include risks related to operations, finance, reputation, legal compliance, and so on. Assess the risks. Once you have identified the risks, assess them based on their likelihood and potential impact. This will help you to prioritize risks and focus on the most important ones. Develop risk mitigation strategies. After assessing the risks, develop strategies to mitigate them. This can include implementing controls, planning mitigation actions, developing contingency plans, transferring risks through insurance and agreements, or accepting risks that are within the organization's risk tolerance. Implement the strategies. Once you have developed risk mitigation strategies, implement them throughout the organization. This can include training employees and stakeholders, updating policies and procedures, and integrating risk management into business processes. Monitor and review. Continuously monitor and review the effectiveness of risk management strategies. This will help you identify new risks, evaluate the impact of existing risks, and make necessary changes to the risk management plan. Next, I will go through these steps in our risk portfolio management tool. Here you can see the first page of a risk management tool that Thinking Portfolio provides. The organization's risks are gathered here in the portfolio view, and from this view we can go to any risk that we choose. Important thing with risk portfolio and risk aware culture is that everybody is involved in risk management. That is why Thinking Portfolio approach is that there are no restrictions on amount of the users. So anyone with access or user rights can add a new risk or new idea for a risk in this system. There can be process to estimate the new ideas, but anyway, the important thing is that anyone can have an access and anyone can input their information and their knowledge to this tool. Let's go next to the risk level and go through the next steps. I have here a sample risk that is called cyber risk. I'd like to go through this sample risk basic steps of risk management. Firstly, usually we input in the risk management tool the risk information. And this is top level risk information, and then we have usually some descriptions on the risk. And the important thing when identifying the risk, there are also the categorizations. So you can have some information, how do you categorize this risk at this identifying stage. So you may have here some information about categorization, and in our tool, for example, this categorization and description fields can be set by the user organization, so they are most meaningful informations to the organization that is using the tool. Next, there is example of how to assess the risk, and this is very simple risk matrix, and there is a simple risk impact analysis. So there is the probability and severity of the risk, and then there is normally some kind of risk scoring, and then there might be something like this, that is how the risk will develop in the future. And this simple analysis can be is done by simply selecting something from these drop-down menus. It is not uncommon that with this, when we are assessing the risk further, we may need some further categorization or different kind of assessment. So this simple risk impact analysis is just one example of how this risk might be assessed. So in our portfolio tool, there are different kind of impact analysis available already that have been developed with our customers. So together we have with our customers, we have developed several different risk analysis methods and tools. When assessing the risks, there might be some further categorizations. For example, here we have some effects on strategic goals, some business process and risk category categorizations, tagging, themes, and so on. And then there might be some analysis on how this risk is connected with other kind of risks. After assessing the risks, the next step is to develop risk mitigation strategies. So in our demo risk management portfolio tool, there is a simple risk mitigation action page that includes only one tool, that is risk mitigation actions. But when thinking of developing risk mitigation strategies, depending on organizations' maturity on risk management, there might be different ways to develop strategies to mitigate the risks. For example, what I mentioned before, this phase might include implementing controls, developing contingency plans, transferring risks, or accepting risks. So there might be different kind of tools to mitigate risk. But when we are speaking of the easiest way, and where this comes to usually, is to mitigation actions and how they are handled in the tool. So we have built this kind of tools to choosing mitigation strategies, but also we have in our demo this easy way to just input the mitigation actions, and that's how organization starts to this mitigation. Then implementing the strategies continues when we are following up these risk mitigation actions. So in this sample portfolio, demo portfolio, there is tools to follow up mitigation actions and strategies. When continuing, the next stage is monitoring and reviewing the process. And like I said, this mitigation actions is first place where to start when we are continuously monitoring and reviewing the effectiveness of risk management strategies. Like I said before, monitoring and reviewing might include identifying new risks, re-evaluating the impact of existing risks, and we might be changing the plans and so on. One thing in monitoring, what I like to think is the strength of this kind of risk portfolio management tool is to have reports of the risk portfolio. So this reporting gives some picture what can be done with portfolio risk management reporting. And we are developing this reporting further. And I like to think that this is also a tool when building risk awareness culture, because having nice graphics and for example, tool for analyzing the risks in reporting gives nice insight and ideas on risk management and the holistic picture to our organization's risk management. So next, I will be continuing on building risk awareness in organization. Building a risk-aware culture is equally important as risk management practices in organization, and here are some steps that you can take to when building risk-aware culture. One thing is leadership commitment, and it is important to have the commitment of leadership to build a risk-aware culture. Leaders must prioritize risk management and communicate its importance to the employees and lead by example. In my experience, this includes choosing correct participants from leadership to drive the change and making the leadership to agree on current maturity level and agreeing on what maturity level should we be targeting. And this maturity level analysis should be the things that are important for that company so that we can get a nice look what should we be doing, and that way have the leadership to commit what should be done and focus on those areas. So next thing there is training and education on this list. So providing training and education to employees on risk management. This can include information on identifying risks, understanding the impact of risks, and implementing risk mitigation strategies. So those were the things that we were talking before. For example, workshops by using one-pagers are, in my experience, very good way to do this kind of training and education. So one thing I have done in these kind of workshops is printing out one-pagers of the areas of the risks of the participants, and that way we have a baseline for thinking the risks of the participants, and that is nice way to have a holistic view of the risk and current risks of that area, and maybe have a nice discussions around the structure behind the risks. So how should we analyze the risks? What is the structure? How we can build the holistic view of the risks, and also think of the mitigation strategies around all these risks. So just having the one-pager printouts in the meeting and discussing on them gives a nice training and education meeting. Communication is there the next thing. Creating a culture of open communication where employees feel comfortable reporting risks and concerns. So encouraging employees to report potential risks, provide feedback on risk management process, and thinking of ways to improve risk management practices. For example, from aviation, we can learn culture of learning from mistakes. So there is a very strong culture of learning from mistakes, and there is no hesitation from the people to talk about the mistakes, and that is one building up block of a risk-aware culture. The last step on my list is continuous improvement, continuously evaluating and improving risk management process. Encourage employees to provide feedback on risk management plan, identifying areas for improvement, and suggesting new strategies to mitigate risks. So this also, of course, includes continuously improving tools of risk portfolio management and for example, involving areas of reporting and processes. So when you are continuing the journey of building risk-aware culture, don't forget the improvement of portfolio management tools. Coming from building risk-aware culture, back to the topic of risk portfolio management. So top-level risk management. These are some of the conversations that we have had with our customers lately. Firstly, integrating risk management as a part of business processes, meaning that most important processes, such as, for example, investments and operations, are integrated in risk management. Next line is linking between strategic and operational risk management, so that there are structures in place in tools and management processes to get valuable information from risk management to operational and strategic level. Link between project risk management and ERM, meaning enterprise risk management, top-level risk management. These are similar tasks than 2 rows above, meaning combining risk management to project model and getting that information back to the management, for example, for prioritizing projects. One topic out of the list is, of course, implementing 3-line defense model, but that is another subject and out of scope in this presentation. Next item is analyzing uncertainty, for example, expected financial gain or loss with simulation. This is just to get more meaningful information out of risk assessment and sometimes even do some simulation with the data. The last topic on our list is linking third parties, and for example, suppliers and stakeholders to risk management. That is certainly possible with our tools, but not usually a straightforward process. But there are, of course, steps that can be taken. These all are very interesting subjects and examples what we are discussing with our customers. If any of those interests you, I am always interested to discuss about these subjects as well. So by following these steps, hopefully you have new ideas in implementing effective risk management practices and building your risk-aware culture in your organization, and this way minimizing potential threats to your goals. Thanks for this opportunity to share some thoughts. My name is Anssi Nevalainen, and please do not hesitate to contact me if you want to further discuss on risk management practice.